everybody, welcome back to the Trading Post. Is episode 4, and we're going to go ahead and do Alaskan Triangle Part 2. We got different mythologies and folklore from Alaska that they're claiming has some credence in the disappearances in the Alaskan Triangle, as we spoke about in the last one. But there's some different ones in here. So let's try and touch up here on a couple little things here. We're going to talk about appearances of huge people. Well, they're basically like giants. Tall people. They look very mean or aggressive. They're scary. They carry size, and they have masks on. Some people have claimed to look like wooden masks or something, and some of these people see these people or beings, and then all of a sudden it's like they're gone. And other people, they'll see them like walk off and leave, but they're definitely have an aggressive side to them. And the name of them are called the Nahani. And you can look all this stuff up. Please, by any means, do your own research. Okay, look into this stuff. If a subject interests you, look into it. Trust me, because you may find stuff that I couldn't find or pull up. You know. But I did my due diligence the best I could to get you guys the information that I can, and to try to present it to you, and hopefully some of this stuff strikes interest for you. But anyhow, it's called the Nahani. Okay, let me get back on track. It's called the Nahani, and they look like a person with a mask carrying a sai, as I said. Some of these encounters, they say that they hear the moaning out in the woods, wood line. There's really not much known about them. Like the history of them and stuff's not really that much known. Now, what's crazy about this one is the Nahani tribe was actually in Canada. Okay, in the Nahani Valley. You may have heard of the Nahani Valley, where they actually call it the Headless Valley, because the Nahani was known to be head people. They were very, very protective of their grounds, or so it seemed. Now, there is a theory that perhaps they came down from Canada, came from Canada and went to Alaska. Now, whether or not these are just ethereal beings, ghost entities, or if it's actually descendants of the Nahani tribe that's still surviving today, that people just don't know because they're so far back in the woods, and then at times they encounter people. But these are some of the different options or possibilities, and there's more than that. That's just some of the ones I'm coming up with right now. But currently in Alaska, there's 200 tribes, according to the statistics I see. There may be more, maybe less, may have changed. I don't know. As I said, look into it yourself. You'll find out your own truth. And they wonder if maybe these incidences where they attack people or something happens, they're wondering if possibly it may be maybe the ground is like a native resting place or some kind of a holy ground that they don't want people to touch. Is it some kind of consecrated ground or something that they don't want nobody to bother with, that they don't want no one to be around. It's a good possibility. But there's been numerous encounters where people have said they have encountered these, they have seen them. And pretty much just imagine a big person that kind of looks like a Grim Reaper, like some kind of skull-looking mask or something of that sort, to that degree. And they are massive, they are big, and they're carrying a Grim Reaper like sickle. And that would be scary enough to see something like that. You know, I've also seen, hold on, give me a second here. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyhow, you know, some of this stuff, like, and some of this stuff too, I'm getting information from experts and professionals through, I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but, you know, if you want to, you can actually look into it. Missing in Alaska. There's a lot of good information that they come up with. You know, they have an Alaskan folklorist, mythologist that knows the native lore. Then they have a cryptologist, cryptozoologist, and then they also have an ex-cop, you know, to help them with, you know, protect yourself, keep yourself safe from their situations. But it's a very interesting show. It's well worth your time to watch. I would definitely recommend it. But and in this show, like, you know, they was discussing about this Nahani, you know, and they was actually investigating it. And what they come up with, they you know, is they've used high-tech instruments like thermal imaging and stuff like that. And in certain spots, like, for instance, they had spots where there was like glacial runoff, you know, which is glacier. Shouldn't be no heat coming off of it. But they had heat on the thermal imager. Really, like hot spots. It shouldn't even be. And then they went back the next day and they checked. They got up on the spot where they seen it from a distance, and they wasn't getting no heat readings whatsoever. So who knows? Could it have been a malfunction of the equipment? Possibly. Could it have been just something unexplainable? Possibly. Probably. You know, that's one instance. You know, they also caught voices. Like they heard stuff. Like a lot of the people that eyewitness accounts, they say they hear stuff. Well, they happened to hear some stuff, and they recorded. Then they took and they had it analyzed. They played it back, and they had it. It sounded like it was a language called Dene, which is French and like French Canadian and native language mix, but it was saying beware. So, you know, there's different things that's been going on there. There's just a lot. There's people that witnessed an encounter that they seen the guy crouch down in their yard whenever they dug, and it seems that when they the guy dug a hole, and he was in the house, and he looked over, and the guy was looking right at him, just staring at him. He looked menacingly, and then eventually he got up and walked away. Now, you know, from the guy's account, you could hear in his voice he was scared. He was definitely concerned. And all these encounters, a lot of them, it seems like it's only whenever somebody's digging. So that brings us back to that question: is it because it's like, you know, hallowed ground or something that they're not wanting to be bothered? They want to be left alone. So, I mean, that's definitely a good possibility. There's other possibilities, I'm sure, but that kind of sticks out in my head. Now, like the instances on a lot of this is like gold miners, prospectors, and stuff like that had come up missing and stuff. There was the one guy disappeared, and later on down the road, I guess another guy disappeared, and then sometime after that, there was a guy that was a writer, and he went out trekking out to try and see if he could find these people and see if he could find out what happened to them. And he was documenting, he was writing in his journal and stuff. And it was odd. He disappeared too, but they did happen to find his journal. There was a couple things written in there. It really there wasn't too much in it, but he said that, he was hearing noises and all that stuff, and just typical, same as everything else. Then you also got, trying to think of what else. There was another guy that I think that guy survived, if I'm remembering correctly, but my memory could be wrong. That he got chased out of there, and he ran back home, and he told people about it, and people thought he was crazy. Now I'm pretty certain that was the case in his situation. Was he ran, he got away. How, who knows, but he did. I'm pretty certain that's what it was. But anyways, that's about it for the Nahanni for now. And we also have the next one. The next one is one that I've already talked about before, the Oshitaka. Well, I think I may have worded it wrong, Oshitaka. On this one, they said it's Kushtaka, so I got to correct myself on that. But that's the one that was called the Otterman. They had that one on there again. They say he's, according to that, he's like 8 foot tall. He's basically like Bigfoot, only with an otter head and claws and things of that sort. They claim the mythology of him is he's a shapeshifter. He can go from an otter to a person and actually deceive people and have them follow him into the woods, and then they supposedly transform him or change him into one of them. According to the mythology on that. And oh, pardon me, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. The writer was he was investigating the Kushtaka, not the Nahanni. I'm sorry, that's my fault. Yeah, the writer he investigated the disappearances and ended up disappearing himself. And as I said, he had a journal. He was talking about this and that, voices in the woods and all that. It's just, there's so much on this. People have claimed to see them all the time, and it never ends up good. A few cases where people have gotten away. Very seldom, but there's been a few. There's been a few of them. It likes to imitate people, like as I said, like shapeshift. It likes to try to pretend to be somebody lure you in, and then takes advantage of you. transforms you. I should say that instead. Um, and you know, on that show, they went and they investigated it. As I said, they talked about this again, and you know, they went up on this one island where there was like this whole little town. It just, everybody's disappeared. Everybody's gone. There's no trace of them. So they went in and they went and investigated this and they checked it out. And you know, when they come up upon where there was an old cabin, it was only like the actual posts, because in that area it's almost like a wetland area, so they have to have their cabins or huts or whatever had to be raised on posts. And the only thing was there at that particular building that was left was the actual posts up in the ground. But yeah, I mean, because it goes back to like 1900, whenever the people just vanished, just gone, and they just don't know, but they theorized that it had something to do with the Kushtaka, because there's been sightings of it in that area and things of that sort. But they found, like, for instance, empty oyster shells picked clean, you know, and they was discussing about that, and they was talking to the native guy, and he said, you know, hey, do natives just eat raw oysters like that, and can they clean it out like that? And the native guy said, well, no. He said, we cook them on a fire. You know, you cook them. He said, I mean, people could eat them raw, but they're probably not going to be able to clean them out like that. Now, whether that's, I don't personally know, because I don't eat oysters, so I couldn't answer that one. Let me see here. What else? Where are we going with this here? And get back on track. Yeah, there's also at the little town or little village that was abandoned there's still some cabins there and stuff. So they went and it was investigating and stuff. And in one of them, they found at the top of the doorway, there was a chunk of white hair. So they took that and got it analyzed and stuff, and they found out it was human hair, but so it must have been one of the villagers. But how did it get up clear at the top of the doorway? It must have been a big person. Had to have been pretty tall. But nevertheless, I mean, it came out inconclusive for, you know, well, not inconclusive. It came up as a human hair, but that doesn't mean there's still not a possibility it could be something else like the Kushtaka or whatnot. But there's it's also said that you know, that the Kushtaka, they don't like iron or steel, and they don't like dogs. So keep that in mind if you're ever in an area where it's like lore is and stuff. If you're over there, and the legend is they believe, the locals, they believe that they will steal your soul and turn you into the otter man. Just another one of them. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I mean, there's people that's been jogging down the roads. They've seen the one guy. He's seen his friend, and he yelled for him. He's like, "Hey," you know. He knew he wasn't too far away. He's yelling at him. He's, "Hey, man, hey!" The guy his friend just kept going. He's like, "What was wrong?" It's like, I know he had to have heard me. Maybe he didn't hear me. So he jogs up the road a little bit further, and he stops, and then he pulls out his phone and he calls his buddy. He says, "Hey, man," he said, "I thought you could have heard me." He's like, "I seen you here." He's like, "Where are you going?" His buddy says, "I'm not going nowhere." He says, "I'm here at home sitting down." And at that instance, the guy that thought he saw his friend, and he knew, he was very adamant that was his friend he saw to a T. And whenever he heard him say that on the phone, he knew it was trouble. And he turned and he got out of there right then and there. Because what it could have been is it could have been the Kushtaka trying to lure him into the wooded area, because he was going out back a trail where it would have taken him into the woods. And he could have turned him or whatnot, you know. So that's just creepy to think, you know, if that's a possibility, you know, that something like that could happen. Let me see here. What's the other ones? I know I got a couple of them on here. I just wanted to go down through them. You know, that's like they saying, you know, could he have mistaken it for someone else? That's always a possibility, of course, you know. But I mean, if this guy was close enough to him and he's seen, you know, he could see his face and everything, he knew it was him. There was no doubts. I mean, like he even told them, he said, you know, this is a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And I know that was my friend. So, you know, let's see here. And, you know, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, I guess you can consider it like a doppelganger, shapeshifter, you know, the Otter Man, however you want to say it. I mean, it's all the same, I would assume. That's, you know, kind of similar stuff. You know, could there be a different species of otter? That's another option. I mean, could it be another species of otter, like one that's unknown? Because they did find other hair that was actually otter hair that was analyzed, and it came back, and the scientist was like, "This doesn't make no sense." And the guy was asking, he said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, because this hair is far longer than any otter hair, but it is otter hair. So how is that possible?" Makes you think, doesn't it? Let's see here. Yeah, and the lure goes, you know, that it'll lure you into the woods or to the river. Then that's when it turns you. There was another encounter where he was cleaning garbage and his friend was in the woods. He said he needed to pick up garbage over there where he was at, but he was kind of like back into the woods. And at that point, there was a woman jogging along the trail with her dog, and the dog started barking. So the guy, the one guy, he was turned around to see what was going on, and when he turned back, his friend was gone. He wasn't in the woods. But then he turned back over and was looking where the woman and her dog was as they was coming up. There's his friend coming out of the woods on another part, and there's no way he could have got there that fast. So how could he have been over in this point telling him come get garbage in the woods on this side, but yet he comes out of the woods over there, literally within seconds time? And it just doesn't make sense. You know, it just didn't make no sense because the timing, that doesn't make sense. In my opinion, you know, that's, take it for what it's worth. They also, at some point when they was doing their investigations, they found a big otter track, bigger than normal otters. It's about the size of the guy's hand. So that's a pretty big track, I'd say. You know, that's not no little one. But you know, there's inconclusive tests. I mean, they had indicators that indicated it was otter tracks, but then the tracks was a little bit smudged because of the rain and that, so it came up inconclusive. But you know, it doesn't mean that that's not what it was. It doesn't mean that is what it is either. So take that with a grain of salt. But that's how it goes with the testings like that. You can't. You can have just about everything to a T, and one thing's off, and it's going to be inconclusive. At least from my assumption of it. You know. Yeah. So that's it for the Kushtaka there. We also got another one we're going to talk about, and I'm sure you may or may not have heard of this one. It's called the Thunderbird. Now, the Thunderbird is, you know, a lot of natives had a lot of lore and legend on these. These Thunderbirds was massive birds. They could pick a human being up and carry them off like it's nothing. You know, like, you know, there's some encounters here that I'm gonna share with you that was on there. You know, there was a woman that was jogging in Mount Marathon. Okay, practicing for, there was a race that they have there, and this woman was just doing her practice run, going up and getting in shape, doing her thing. Now, as she went up, as she was coming up, she was almost on the last. She was pretty much on the last leg of it. Get ready to go up to the top and then turn around and come back. She didn't have very far to go. But there was a guy that was jogging and was coming down, and he discussed and he told her. He said, "Hey," he said, his name was what's his name, Marlo, and her name was Jenna. And he said, "Hey," he said, it's getting ready to storm really bad. You know, you might want to hurry up so you don't get caught in a bad storm." And you know, she talked to him. She said, "Yeah, I'll be right back down." So then she continues on. He turns around. He starts going down the hill a little bit, and he's looking at the sky and noticing it's getting really bad. It's getting really dark. And then out of nowhere, he sees a bird about the size of a small plane. Now imagine that. Think about that. Seeing a bird the size of a small plane, like, I don't know, what, a Cessna or something like that. That's a big bird. And it was flying directly towards where that Jenna was jogging, going towards that direction. But, you know, I guess, you know, in hindsight, maybe the guy just thought maybe he was just seeing things, maybe he was just exhausted, maybe dehydrated or something. But anyways, you know, after that encounter, you know, like the storms and all that came and everything, but that Jenna disappeared. She was never seen of again. They did a wide search, looked for her, tried to find her and all that, and they couldn't. You know, I mean, and the thing is, it's like, whenever you look into something like this, it's like, well, what could have happened? Could it have been an accident? You know, did she suffer an accident and they just didn't find her? You know, but according, you know, like, I don't know. When you got somebody that's fairly adamant about that, seeing that bird that size, he said the wingspan was probably about 25 feet or more. That's a big bird. But yeah, they never found her. You know, and it's a sad thing. It's just like she disappeared. There was no indication of any struggle with her, or that any animal attacked her. There was no indication of her falling over a ledge or anything bad like that happening. So, you know, but yeah, that's sad. You know, and then another instance would be in 1971. Okay, in Illinois, There was a kid that was picked up by a bird, carried him 35 feet, and his mom saved him. His mom saved him. I don't know, she must have smacked him, or she pulled her son out of his talons or whatever. Got him loose somehow. And but they didn't know. They had no clue as to what kind of bird it was. They just knew it was big. I mean, for it to carry the kid off, that's crazy. You know, and another thing is with these sightings with these thunderbirds, it seems like it's inclement weather every time, which ties into that too. So it's interesting to know that, like, these are what the consistencies are with these things. And in the legend and lore of these things, it says that they create lightning and thunder, which is therefore the name Thunderbird. You know, kind of goes into the name. But you know, and then if you want, you know, you try to weigh what's the possibilities. What could it possibly be? You know, like, so locally, as far as Alaska, you know, what birds is there? I mean, what could it be? I mean, could it be a condor or an eagle? Like, you know, there's some big birds out there. You know, condors are big. You have harpy eagles. You have different types, but the thing is, it has to fall into something that's generally you try to go by the rule of thumb where you have what's indigenous to the area. Now, there may be a one-off where there's something that's, you know, in an area that it's not known to be. I mean, that does happen, but you know, when you're trying to whittle things down and try to decipher what's going on, I mean, you kind of go through the rule of thumb and you try to do it that way. Most generally, that's what they do. But anything's possible in this world, though. Anything's possible. You know, and another thing is too, you know, like when they was trying to investigate with this situation where this lady was jogging on that mountain, you know, you got to beg the question. You know, birds always roost. You know, they always go somewhere to nest. So where would a huge bird that big, where would it be roosting or hiding? To where, because if people's not noticing it until you're getting some random sightings here or there, and it almost seems like it's inclement weather. So I would assume it's going in inclement weather. Whether it controls weather or not, that's up for debate. But let's just theorize that it doesn't control the weather. Maybe it waits for the weather to get to that point, and it's under the cloud. It's under the cover of cloud cover, you know, where no one sees it until it's too late, and they don't notice it. You know, on occasions maybe they're out and about because they got to eat too. So on certain occasions, maybe they do get caught whenever the weather's not as bad. But for most accounts, it is. It's inclement weather. You know, so where would a bird that big go? Especially if it's in mountainous types areas. Possibly a cave. I mean, it could be holed up in a cave somewhere. I mean, you know, could it be just like a big vulture? Could it be a condor, an eagle? You know, heck, could it even be a possibility of a prehistoric, you know, like a pterosaur or something? You know, who knows? But according to the sightings, they're saying it's a bird. So I wouldn't think that would go, but it's possible. Anyways, we're gonna move on with this one because that's about what I got for that one there. Oh no, hold on, I got a little bit more. Let's see here. They said that day the storm was encroaching, like I was telling you. They told her to hurry, and there was no noise. no noise with that bird. It just didn't make no noise. And it had a hooked bill. Really huge talons. One of those told. It flew to the top of the mountain. It said. And there was only one way down the mountain, so it's not like she could have taken a different route down the mountain. There really was only one route, so it's one of those deals. Then there's another encounter here. Yeah, there's like an eerie feeling of this one lady. She was walking, and it said she had an eerie feeling she's being followed. So she just turned around and looked. She seen a huge shape rise above the tree line, and she said it was the size of a small plane. And the bird was just like circling. It started circling, and when she started to focus and realize what was going on, and it was a humongous bird. It scared her. She started running, and then the bird flew away. Another bird could, here's some of the other birds that they was talking about. Could it be an albatross or an Andean condor? But those, it can't be an Andean condor because those are in the Andes. Albatross, those aren't really well known for that area. A California condor, no, they're not in that area either. So, like I said, it goes back to like the rule of thumb. They're not in Alaska. Those aren't in Alaska. But you do have bald eagles, however, in Alaska, and they can get up to an 8-foot wingspan. That's the largest in Alaska that they have. Now, the one specialist, he was talking about, could it be a Lazarus? Could it be a Lazarus taxon territor, a prehistoric bird? Could these still be alive? Who knows? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. Then there's another encounter here we have. It says there was this young guy. He was trying to replace a battery in his vehicle. He's working on it, and he said, he had that feeling, like something's there. Turned around and he looked up and he said he thought it was a plane, but then he realized it was actually a bird, and it was carrying something. He said as it got a little closer, he could realize it was carrying something. He said, what in the world in here? It was carrying a deer in its talons. And that was his encounter. Now imagine that. I'd probably be frozen stiff seeing something like that. A bird carrying a deer in its talons? What? That's insanity. But anyways, that's that fellow's encounter. Then we got another one. There was they're talking about they have what they call mountain waves. Different high-low pressure differences and stuff. When the wind hits the mountains, it comes up, it comes down. Then it kind of like compresses and decompresses. It's like does like oscillating, and it actually makes it looks like almost like ripples in the air. Like almost like sound waves, kind of like it's like you can physically see it. And that's when that weather is bad like that. And on that day that the one lady on the mountain disappeared, it was like that. That weather was like that. They actually had satellite imagery of that day, the storm, and it was really interesting to see that stuff. I mean, honestly, whenever I get better at this, I'll be able to put pictures up while I'm doing this stuff. But for the time being, this is what I got. This is what I'm doing. So bear with me and let me grow. I'm gonna get better at this, I promise. Also, we got one last creature here. Lake Iliamna monster, or Illy. Okay, Illy. There's a guy named Rick Nelron. He was kayaking. He was kayaking and just doing his thing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, his kayak was knocked upside down, and he was never seen again. Now, this they wondered, and you got to throw into the mix. I mean, when something like this happens, did he drown? Was he inexperienced? Because he wasn't from the area. He actually was on vacation when he came there. So that could be brought into question. Did a bear get him or something? What happened? Or could it be the Iliamna lake monster? They're claiming it's 30 feet long. It's got a blunt head for ramming, and it's got huge teeth. And it's crazy because a lot of the encounters, it just seems like it's around the circumference of the lake, like around the perimeter of it, where they get hit. So, I mean, there's different things. I mean, what else could it be? You got other things that you can kind of debate with it. They have other different things that are comparative to what this is. You got the Okopogo, the Selma or Nessie. Like any of those, they're like prehistoric creatures. It's just there's different stories of creatures like that. Illy's different, but Illy's different. It's more like a giant fish. It's almost on some of the accounts they say it was almost like ghost-like disappeared, like disappeared out of nowhere. Could and it's like, well, what all do they have there? In that water that they know of. You got king salmon. They can get up to 100 pounds. You got sockeye, native fish. You got white sturgeon, which could be over 1,000 pounds. Those are big. But from what account, they got seals. Could it be a plesiosaur, a reptile, beluga whale, or an oarfish? Oarfish get 50 feet long, 600 pounds. There's another encounter. John Chamberlain. He was a witness on the lake. The ripple was coming towards him, and then he was wondering what was going on. He starts trying to paddle, and then something jerked his paddle. Well, whenever he yanked his paddle loose, and it had a big bite taken out of it, it looked like serrated edges. And he actually showed the guys the paddle. You could actually see the actual bite mark on it. It was a massive bite mark. He's lucky he's still alive, to be honest. But that was his encounter. So sturgeon and seals was ruled out, by experts. Could it be a sleeper shark? That was another question. Sleeper sharks, they store food longer. They store food longer in their body. They can actually survive longer without having to eat. And then all of a sudden they have to eat. So that could be an explanation as to why it's only periodic times that they actually run into this, where this is happening, where you have encounters with these things. So could that possibly be? It's possible. Let's see here. Here's another encounter in 1997. A guy was fishing. He looked up because there were seals there. There were seals that was over across from him. And then he cast his line out and stuff, and he looked up. And the seals were gone, but there was a big shape in the water. And then it disappeared. As soon as it got there, just as soon as it was there, it's gone. And you know, so you know, another thing that you got to track too is a lot of these things happen to be happening around where this, like the seal migration there. They migrate around the lake. You know, wintertime they're over here. You know, summertime, springtime they're over here. So they follow the seal migration pattern. You know, it's just what it seems like. And it says, you know, are people in kayaks being mistaken for seals? That's a good possibility. You know, whatever this is grabbing hold of them thinking they're seals. Could it be a military submarine? That's another thing. There is military places down around there. Could it be an experimental prototype of something? And they're not saying nothing. I mean, who knows? I mean, because they could be testing underwater craft. Could it be a like you look for like an instance with like a lungfish? They say they can go 4 years without eating. 4 years without eating. That is insanity. You know, they say numerous times. I mean, huge shadows been seen multiple times. You know, it hits the diver. You know, and it hits the diver, knocked his tank off, and cut his communications. This was a guy that was actually diving in there when they was actually doing their investigations. You know, they had a dummy in a canoe, in a kayak, and they had a diver, an actual professional diver, went down in the water to try and observe and see if he can get film or footage of whatever it was. Well, whatever it was on him before he knew, and it like rammed right into him. It knocked his tank off and kind of knocked him simple for a minute. So he got his bearings and he lost communication with the guys up on the boat. And he didn't get no way of indicating what it was. But I mean, another thing is, you know, they bring up with it happening the way it did, it was happening so fast, and he didn't even know where it was at. And if it's something that big, you can't see it that fast. Either one of two things I'm gonna say: it'd have to be murky water, where you can't see nothing, or, you know, the other theory is what they brought up, which is smart, and I've never really thought of anything like that, but it could be aquatic translucency, which is that goes with jellyfish and squid and stuff like that, where they have like a transparency. It's almost like they can make themselves more transparent or see-through. So imagine if you have a huge predator like that. It's under the water that can do that. That's a dangerous creature, because you won't know it's there till it's too late. Every time. You know, and then you got. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next one, because I know this episode's getting a little bit long here. I don't want to run you guys too long. Okay, in 1957, there was a fisherman. He seen a column of smoke. To the shelter, he went to the shelter. That's where the village was. There was a fire going, and no one was there, but a massive bear. And then this is the legend of the Torngasuk, or the bear god. No one from town ever was found. And this goes back to the hair. I think I misplaced that when I had it written down. Anyhow, the area is called Prince William Sound. Okay. There was no reports of a disaster. There was no bodies found. No blood. They lived with bears for years, so it wasn't nothing new to them living around bears. Okay. Could it be, you know, something that angered this creature? Like, and from what the lore says is, you know, don't disrespect nature, because it will come for you. You know, the shaman they prayed for it to cure you. You know, it was considered the ruler of the sea. And you know, it's just there's other things they could say because this bear is supposedly massive. It's like I think they said it's like 4 times the size of any other bear, or 8 times the size of any bear. That's think about that. A Kodiak bear, grizzly bear, they're huge. Polar bears are massive. And if it's bigger than any known bear by that many times, that it sounds ridiculous because you'd think that thing couldn't even, you'd think that thing couldn't even move properly. But I mean, something that could explain something like that would a possibility of explaining it is they have what they call myostatin excess, which could give excessive muscle mass. It's a possible cause for that if it's like a defect or a mutation or something, if that's the case. But this thing is a huge white bear. Huge white bear. Okay? And it is known as a white bear. There are crossbreeds of grizzly and polar bears. You know, could that be possible? Who knows? Maybe. But according to what they're saying, the size of this thing is, it wouldn't touch it. It wouldn't even come close. And it's like this village that disappeared. The disappearance was similar to that of like the Roanoke colony, like where you got a whole village just gone. No trace of them, no nothing. No indication of anything. No signs of struggles, no nothing. So, but the difference between these two is this village they were survivalists. They already lived off the land. They already survived. They've coexisted with bears. It's not like it was new to them. That's what's crazy about it. There's no indicator of plague or famine or anything like that. The investigators, they came up and they found a ring of stones, whereas they found some fish bones in there. They dug up, and they was old ones, but they couldn't tell how old. They couldn't indicate how old, but they looked old. But they could have been from weather and stuff like that. But they found the fish bones, and they was wondering, could have been like for a sacrifice or something like that for this Torngasuk. Maybe to appease him, so it didn't bother them. Maybe that's how they coexisted in peace for how long, and then all of a sudden they didn't because maybe somebody offended it. Possible. They found wood with a possible huge bite mark, which it actually was a bite mark. They analyzed it; it was a bite mark, but they couldn't quite say what it was because the size of the spread on the jaws was massive, and there's no bear that would match that. But it was like a bear's teeth. It's insane. It gets crazier and crazier as you go through. And it's like the bite marks. They was trying to go through all that. Could have been seal's teeth. Could have been wolves. Could have been, something else. But they didn't come up with any of that. So there's also another thing, since we're saying it's a white bear, right? Like a polar bear or whatever. They have what they call a Kermode bear. I never heard of this. I don't even know. This is new to me. But locals call it a spirit bear. The problem with that is, though, it's a small type of bear. It is white, but it's a small type of bear. It's not big. Not near the size they're saying this one is. Here's another option. Could it be a short-faced bear, like one of the prehistoric bears? They would get 12 foot tall. They had a wider spread of teeth, but they've been extinct, accordingly extinct for roughly 20,000 years. So, is it possible? Anything's possible. Keep your mind open. We don't know what's all out there. I'm going to leave that out there for you. And, you got we got a couple of encounters here, and we'll wrap this up, okay? Encounter number one, the guy was fishing, and then something hit the boat. It was a massive white paw grabbing the boat. Within minutes, it disappeared. It just that would be scary as all get out. Encounter number two, there was a hiker. He was hiking. He was in the mountain. But he smelled like an ocean smell. He said, which was weird. It was odd. You wouldn't expect that unless you're by the coast. Where by the ocean there. So, but he thought it was odd, and he didn't think nothing about it. He kept going, and he happened to get up over on this ridge, and there was a rock outcropping above him. All of a sudden, he sees a huge back of what he thought to be a polar bear. And he hears a low grumbling growl, and then it kind of skates down behind the rocks where he was at, and then it leaves. So he just kind of was froze, I guess, and stuck there for a minute, and then he decided to go and inspect the paw prints. I don't know if he did it the next day or that day. I'd assume he probably did it. He might have done it that day, but he's seen huge paw prints there. Then he rushes out of the area. So yeah, he checked it that day. Then you got encounter number three. There was a pilot. Okay, he's flying. It was dense fog. And he wanted to go along the shoreline. He had to fly down a little bit lower. And he's looking around. He thought he saw a polar bear. But it was 3 or 4 times bigger than any polar bear he's ever seen. He tried to double back, but it was gone. Whenever he tried to turn back around to get a better look at it, it was gone. And then there, like I said, there's white fur that was found. White fur footprints, the bite mark on the board. I mean, that's a lot of physical evidence of something. What? Who knows? We don't know. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And I'm going to be cranking some more out. I'm going to try and I got one that I'm working on right now, but it's going to be a lengthy one. This one here wasn't even that long, and I actually made this one. This one seems like it was longer than all the other ones. But anyways, I'm going to try and keep getting better at this. If you have comments, any critique, let me know. I'll be glad to fix it and make it better. But like I said, you guys look up your own. Find your truth. Find your truth. Do your research. Do your due diligence. If you have anything that you come across or something that might be interesting, send it to me. I'll be glad to check it out. You guys all have a great one. Thanks for watching the Trading Post podcast. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.